So we have come from Latvia, as you understand.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
We have also brought many greetings, thanks, I don't know everything, even kisses, I suppose, from Latvian fans.
That's fine, we'll have them back, very much have them back.
Yeah, and they have prepared also some questions.
Have they? Fantastic. That's fantastic.
So that's it. She's 13 years old and she's interested why men's thoughts can be heard and not women.
Well, I thought that the thing that human beings as a whole do worst is that they look at difference and they don't just see it as a difference. They see it's either worse so that it can be exploited, or it's better so it needs to be pulled down. And so this idea that something that is different is just different is kind of the thing that we do worst as human beings. And so I thought, well, let's make that difference between men and women completely extreme, as much as it can be, and see what happens. So it's nothing, it's not trying to say anything necessarily, but it's about what would happen if men and women were that different. What would people do? That's what I did, yeah.
Joris, who is 15 years old, he's interested how long it takes you to write a book.
That's a very good question, Joris. It took about a year each. Each one took about a year, so that's a lot of work in a year. But about a year, I start the first draft, maybe 5 months, and then 7 months of rewriting. So about a year.
So it takes a year before you hand in your book to the publisher, but it takes some more time for
another year.
So a year it's your work.
A year is my work, then a year is the publisher's work. So yeah, so from the day I start, it comes out about 2 years later, which is a long time.
Yeah, but good books.
Yeah, that's how you do it, yeah.
So Mara, she's 12 years old. She liked Todd's dog Manchi a lot. So, and she's interested whether you have any pets yourself, or maybe had.
I did. I had, while I was writing the book, I had a cat called Dietrich.
Oh.
And he got very old, and so he's no longer alive. But the idea for Manchi started because my cat never meowed, never made a sound, except when he was going to the litter box to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
So I thought, if he's talking, what's he trying to tell me? You know, this is the only thing that he talks about. And I thought that would be funny if your dog learned to talk and then they talked about nothing interesting at all. And I thought that's funny. And so I did. I had a cat, and I will be getting another cat. I like cats quite a lot. I love dogs, but I like cats as well.
So Inga, 17 years old, she asks, do you have any book you could name as your most favorite? Or maybe the first book you remember from your childhood?
It seems funny to say, but I used to love reading books that came in sets, in boxes. And so I read the Chronicles of Narnia and I read Lord of the Rings. But the one I remember, interesting, out of all those, the one I remember the most is actually Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah,
the Laura Ingalls on that. Because it was about frontier, and it was about, there's one called The Long Winter, which is just about being trapped in a blizzard. And I remember sort of being 7 and thinking, oh, I want to be trapped in a blizzard, I want to be snowed in. And so that's probably the one I remember, is The Long Winter from Little House on the Prairie, of all things.
That's very romantic and sentimental.
I guess, yeah, really sentimental, but you know, when you're a kid,
very
that's
friendly.
important. Yeah, very friendly, yeah.
So no one can speak about violation there.
Well,
violence.
yeah, but kids do like to talk about that though later on, but when you're young, 7, so yeah.
Yeah. So Christine, 13 years old. How it happened that you became a writer? What age did you start writing?
It's a very good question. I'm guessing, what was her name again?
Christina.
Christina. I bet Christina is also a writer. I'll bet that is a question of somebody who wants to write. And that's a really good question. I always remember writing. I remember writing even 7 or 8 years old. Not very good, you know, but you know, I started trying to put stories together and just to see. You copy a lot when you're 7 or 8. You mimic, and that's okay. And then people started reading them, and they started responding how I kind of wanted them to, and that's a really good feeling. And I always think I really can't sing. I'm a very, very bad singer, but it's how I imagine people who sing really well feel when they sing. You know, when it feels like this is something that I can do. And that's a nice feeling. And so I always wrote, and I probably wrote my first book in my early 20s, but I know people who've written younger, so there's no right age to start, but yes, I did always write.
Gus, 14 years old. So, being now a famous and a well-respected writer, do you recall some out-of-ordinary things or behavior from your teenage life?
Oh, my teenage life. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't, looking at me now, you know, quite clean-cut hair and all that. I had really long hair. I had really, really long hair. And do you remember, you know, Bono from U2?
Yeah.
You know, there's a video for Sunday Bloody Sunday, and he's got really long hair. That's what it looked like. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And I was also, do you know what I mean by goth?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just
all
in black. And yeah, pale skin. Yeah, you wouldn't believe it now, but that's fine. Yeah. So yeah, I did a lot of embarrassing things when I was a teenager. But I think everybody does. It's part of being a teenager. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. It suits being a teenager.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And that's where you find out what works. That's where you find out what doesn't work, and it's. And I try to never laugh at what teenagers do, because it's so important to take a chance. And it's not always going to work, and sometimes you're going to embarrass yourself, but so what? So what? That's exactly what growing up is.
So Sandra, she's 15 years old. Has any of the characters from the Chaos trilogy got one's prototypes in the real world?
Only parts, only little bits here and little bits there, except for one. And my grandparents and that layer of my family all immigrated from Norway to the United States. And so I had a great aunt. I wasn't really close to my grandparents, but I was really close to my great aunt. And she was called Ingeborg. And she lived to be 85. And she was about 6'2", and still chopping her own full firewood, you know. And she was a great, great lady. And she shows up in my books a lot. And so in the first book, she is the character of, more or less, she's the character of Hildy. Yeah, I don't know how you may have translated the name, but she's the one who first finds Todd and Viola together. And so that's, one, out of love. Otherwise it's just bits and pieces.
Interesting. Where do you get the inspiration for your story in your books?
Is that from a writer, or is that?
It's like our question.
Oh, okay.
It's not.
Well, that's always the hard question for any writer, isn't it? That's the hardest thing to find, and the answer is kind of everywhere. And it can be the most unexpected things. I mean, it can be unexpected, like imagining what my cat would say if he spoke, and that seems silly. It seems, you know, a stupid idea, but then from that it develops and develops, and you think, oh, there's something interesting there. And like the idea for the noise is quite a serious one. It's about everybody has a mobile phone, everybody has internet, everybody has email, Facebook, on and on and on, and so there's hardly any privacy at all anyway. And I thought, well, what is that? How does that feel if you're 14 or 15 or 12? And so there's this really silly idea about a talking dog, and a really serious idea about privacy and information. And they shouldn't seem like they should go together, but yeah, so everywhere, anything can be turned into a book. It's what you feel a little hook, you feel a little feeling, like, oh yeah, there's something there.
When you write the book, do you write them for a particular reader? Maybe you have a vision of the potential reader in front of you when you are writing.
I don't. I write, whenever I've tried to write for a potential reader, it's always been a bad book, because I'm not writing for me. And so when I write books sort of for young adults, I picture a young me, sort of the teenager that I was, and what did I want to read, and what did I want to feel, and what kind of truth did I want to be told, because that's really important to me, telling the truth to a young reader. And so no, I picture myself, and I think that sounds selfish, but if I can find excitement for me, and if I can find joy, and if I can find thrills, and if I can find sadness for me, then all of that's going to be on the page, all of that's going to be in the book, and I think other people will respond to it. So I think you have to write it for yourself, you have to write a book that you want to read yourself, I think. Yeah, so.
And who is the first reader of your books?
I keep them secret for a long, long time, and then usually my agent. And I give it to my other half as well, but that's just for support. You're wonderful, darling, you're wonderful. But usually my agent, and then I get questions, and my editor reads it, and I get more questions, and only then, once I've rewritten it, do I sort of go farther out and let other people read it. It's very slow. I keep it private for as long as I can.
And to tell the truth, we have our publisher publishing house has published several young Latvian authors, and what's interesting that all of them write in fantasy and FNF, so genre. And maybe you can say some words to them as encouragement or something.
For young Latvian writers?
Yeah, because they write in the same genre as you.
Well, I think one of the two really important things, which is one of which is, I've sort of almost said, which is that you have to want to read the book you're writing. That is more important than anything. So forget what people, if people scoff at the genre, or if people say, well, forget them. Forget them. Write the book that would just, however strange it may seem, write the book that excites you, because other people are going to be able to tell. Like for Harry Potter, nobody was looking for a book about boy wizards, but she just wrote a book that felt really exciting to her and other people could tell. So that's number one, is write the book that you want to read. And I think the other one is just not be a snob. Fantasy and science fiction should not be looked down upon, but they shouldn't be put above other things either. You know? So I read everything. I read genre stuff, I read literary stuff, read everything, and just try not to feel any limitations of any kind. And then somehow a book appears from that, is what I would say.
From your heart?
Yeah, absolutely from your heart, because people can tell, a reader can tell.
Yes. Thank you. And so we would like, of course, to hear something that you say some words to Latvian readers.
Okay. What I would say, particularly to young readers, which is that to teenagers or whoever might read these books, is that I don't mind. I want you to love them. I want you to love them. I want you to really enjoy them. But it's okay if you don't. Reading is a personal thing. Reading is private and one-to-one. And I think you might like them. I think you might really like them. But if you don't, that's fine. Read something else. And whatever response you have is exactly the right response. So give them a try. But as long as you read, I'm a happy writer.
Thank you for finding time to meet.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Yeah.